Greetings! We've got 3 games to look at today. Manic Meeples, Forge the Fates, and Cybertile. Kind of tactical games that have, I think at least 2 of them have some element of deck building. One of them I'm not so sure. But they're all kind of games that use grids or some sort of abstract thing to do some kind of tactical combat. I'm interested in all of these. And so yeah, let's check them out. Manic Meeples is a turn-based deck builder roguelike where you collect a bunch of cute little guys called Meeples to fight for you, all of which have completely unique characteristics and abilities. Yeah, very kind of visually appealing game. The UI and everything is very, very consistent. The typeface feels like it might get a little bit grating to read after a while because of how stylized it is, but this looks neat. My one beef with this is that that's not a Meeple, this is a Meeple. Just to educate you on the matter. This is what a Meeple is. I had to go and get one from the cupboard to make sure that everyone knew that this is what a Meeple is. A Meeple is a little wooden guy that you use in Euro-style board games. So Euro-style board games are very economic board games where you are usually not in direct conflict with other players. You're usually being passive-aggressive. They come out primarily from a few decades in German history where no one was making games about war for obvious reasons, and instead they decided to make lots of very passive-aggressive games about farming and stock trading. So most people that play board games, if you say Meeple, they're going to think of one of these. That's not to say that you can't make a game called Manic Meeples and have a completely different type of guy called a Meeple. But I did find it a bit confusing because I was looking at it and I was like, where are the Meeples? Are these, you could have called them Mersons. So Forge the Fates, we've got like a combat with a match 3. There's some very nice pixel art here. It's got that very kind of bold, bright, arcadey Vampire Survivors thing where it feels like all of this interface and stuff could have been from like a SNES game or a sort of early 90s arcade machine. And then Cybertile, I think anyone who's played Shogun Showdown will look at this and go, that is like a direct recreation of Shogun Showdown. It looks like it could be mechanically identical. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that is a good way to make a game in a genre, is to like just take the fantasy version and make the sci-fi version. Take the sci-fi version, make the Cowboys version, whatever it is. So there's a chance here that this is like a good implementation. I like the theme. Personally, I find this theme more appealing than I'll show you the game I'm talking about. Shogun Showdown is this sort of tile-based game where you jump back and forth on a grid and you do moves, and it's very kind of crunchy and thinky, and it's basically, this seems like it's taking the same core mechanics as that. When you make a game that's like very clearly an homage to that other game, you're going to invite comparison. It's then a matter of, is your game as good as, and what does it do to be slightly different and stand out? I'm Dr. Fuzzy, and I'll be showing you how to play. Right-click, space, or Z to continue. This is a strategy game, so pay attention to this short lesson and you'll be good to go. The goal of each board setup is to beat all enemies while keeping the king alive. If the king dies, you lose the run. Click your pieces to use them. They each can either move, attack, or use their ability. What they can do will show up on the left side of the screen while hovering over them. Okay. However, doing these things all cost a certain amount of energy. You can see your energy in the bottom right. We've got energy and juice. Why don't you try out with the king? Move the king up in front of me and attack. Don't worry, I can take it. Oh, okay, you're up there. Let's see. Youch. Ahem, anyways, good job. As you saw, the energy required to perform each action appears over that action's button. Plus, your energy will fully replenish at the start of each of your turns. We have abilities. Take a look at the king's ability by hovering over him and looking to the left. Click him to use it. Okay, so juice is going to be our resource for placing units on the board, and then energy is our resource for taking turns, I think. taking actions during turns. We're all meeples, they're the best thing ever. If you look to the right, you'll see 3 pawns. These are the meeples that are in your deck right now. Okay, the not very interesting lad with the wooden sword is like the generic placeholder meeple that you have if you don't have anyone else, I think. You can use that little goober just like you used the king, and you can place more since you have more juice. Okay. It's very strange to have end turn on the left-hand side. That's a convention that's usually based on which side you read in the language. So if this was like a kind of Japanese game that had been translated, then I might expect to see end turn on the left-hand side. It's very unusual to see it on the left-hand side with UX conventions for like English first products or any kind of game or software where you are developing it in a language where people primarily read left to right. You generally have next on the right hand side. It's just what we're used to, and it's one of those conventions that's not really worth breaking because it will take a long time for people to get used to the pattern because you're working against what they're used to from like 99% of other things they engage with. That felt like a lot of reading and not much doing. And I think that's fine for like the early stages of a tutorial when you don't have any other way to present the information. But the thing is, this game feels so polished and so close to being like everything I see here in terms of like the presentation and the art and the kind of feedback, it feels very, very close to being a launch candidate. And like I wouldn't be surprised if this was coming out in like the next month or two. And so the tutorial we just saw, that feels like a first pass at a tutorial where you haven't really learnt yet what people need to know or what people struggle with. So you've just kind of put it all in there. Like you've broken the entire game down, rather than like finding out through playtesting which concepts people have the most problem with and then building a tutorial that you actually play. There wasn't much play in that. There was lots and lots of telling. And it was like the tutorial acknowledged that you need to do the actions to learn them, because there was a moment where the tutorial stopped and made us do that. But I probably would have liked a little bit more of that to break up the reading. Because a lot of the reading stuff that you gave us to do was stuff that's quite self-explanatory from clicking around in the game and seeing where things are. You'll be progressing through this area, fighting battles and finding spots to improve your run. After the next battle, you'll find new places to go that allow you to take new meeples or... Okay. Yeah, there's lots of stuff here that feels like it could be a find out on your own. Like when you have money in a game, you just show people that there's money. You let them get the money, and then you give them an opportunity to spend the money. You don't need to say to people like, this is money. You'll use it to get stuff later on. It's like the fact that the money is used for something is just implied by the existence of the money, you know? I think you can really kind of end up overloading how much you're asking people to read and process by stating things that are just a little bit too obvious for the type of game it is. Because your audience for this are going to have played some sort of similar game at some point. If you explain too much, then the impression it can give is that like your game is for people that have never played one of these games before, and then that sort of implies that it's going to be too simple for like hardcore players of this genre. You know? It's like, and is that what you want? If your goal is for your game to be like someone's first entry into playing this type of game, then you do need to tutorialize it that way. But you need to be aware that tutorializing it that way is going to alienate people that have played so many of these games before. So if you want it to, you know, if you want it to be really accessible, you do the full tutorialization. If you are actually thinking, you know, this is for people that have played one of these games before, then you can imply some more of those things. My general rule with tutorials is don't bring things up until they're immediately relevant to something the player is doing. So, you know, if I can see a big long map and there's like a crown at the end of it, you don't need to then tell me there are 6 levels, and at the end you win, because I can see 6 nodes on a map and there's a crown at the end, right? So let the visual communication of the game do what its job is, and only reinforce it with text at the moments where it's absolutely imperative to keep a player engaged in doing the thing that they're supposed to do in that moment of time. As a demo player as well, which is like who we're thinking about in this instance, you know, you've got a demo up on Steam, your game is reasonably finished, your tutorial isn't just there to teach the game, it's there to onboard players and to let them know whether this game is going to be something that they find fun. And that means that you really need to focus everything on the moment to moment, like what are we doing right now, and a little bit of why are we doing it. But I generally find that a lot of the time tutorials work best when they just are snappy, they write in the imperative, they're like, do this now. And then occasionally, if you've playtested it and people don't understand why they're doing that now, then you can explain the why. Then you can say, this is why we're doing this. But it feels like this tutorial very thoroughly tells you what you need to do and why, and it's not always very clear whether we need all of that information and context, or some of it could have been left up to inference. So we have a king we have to protect, which is, so it's kind of like chess with all of these modular pieces, I guess. Hey, how'd it go? Hope you didn't get beat up too badly. Anyway, for our final lesson, we'll talk about clear bonuses. If you beat a battle while not letting the king get hit and not attacking with the king, you'll get little clear bonuses. These bonuses will give you extra money as well as some curse credits. Yeah, again, you're telling me about stuff that you can use this later on. You can just give me the resource and assume that it's a cool thing. And I go, oh, it's a reward. That must be useful for something later on. And if you want to give me this information about what curse credits are for, just let me hover over them and find out that way. That's the interaction language that we're used to in these games, is I get a thing, and if I don't know what it is, I hover over it and there's a tooltip. Those kind of features, the tooltip features that explain the game where whatever stage you're at in the game, are really, really important, because someone might play your game, play the tutorial, not play it for like 100 days, come back and play it again on their old save. They need to reload the game, but they're not going to really want to restart their save and replay the tutorial. Even if you give them the option to, they'll like feel quite negative about that, a lot of people. So having just explanations for mechanics that you can access at any point through tooltips or through pop-ups or like little information buttons, whatever, that's kind of more important. And this kind of feels like the sort of information that should live inside that feature rather than being spoon-fed to us stage by stage during the tutorial. So yeah, look, we had a tutorial on what curse credits are, and now if I go up here, there's no information on what curse credits are. Level up one of these pawns. Are you going to do all of them? Oh, that's cool. So it picks 3 randomly from your deck, and you can level them all up in one go. That's neat. I like the way that that plays around with the randomness of drawing one. Right, we can go this way, and we can do an extra battle. And that will take us through a Dastardly Den, which I can highlight, and it tells me the name of it, but that doesn't really help me understand what it is. So in order for that pop-up and that title to be helpful, I'd already have to have played the game and memorized what this is, because I can't actually... Deciding whether to go that way or deciding to go that way is not a meaningful decision, really. It's just like, do you want to do two things and the second one you don't know what it is, or do you want to just do one thing? I'm going to go the long way for the sake of this kind of playtest. And because it's the tutorial, we still don't have any other guys. So it's taking a long time to get into the point where I feel like I'm doing any kind of deck building or making any choices about what type of guys I've got or anything like that. It's basically spending a long time to sort of teach the core of the game, but the appeal of these games is like what happens as you build your deck, you know? It might just be too long a tutorial. Welcome, my dear, to the Grand Caravan. Make yourself comfortable and mind the dead bodies. What is it that thou doest there? Wonderful. Oh, we're ever so glad you asked. Here in our dastardly den, we can turn your boring, lame, no-good meeples into... Drumroll, please. I said drumroll, please. We can turn them into dastardly meeples. They have very useful effects applied to them, but they tend to have some unintended downsides. Okay, that's fun. You have to sacrifice one to make another one dastardly. Okay. Yeah, not really a choice at this stage because they're both the same thing. That will be a more interesting choice later on when we've got a deck of stuff that's not generic pawns. Actions cost 0 energy but can only do 1 action per turn. Okay. Put you over that side where the tough guy is. We got a squirrel and a plumpkin. Yeah, the character designs in this are lovely. I really, really like the character designs. Thematically, it feels like a strange mashup because you're calling them meeples, which is like one board game thing. Then it seems to mostly be playing on chess because you're defending your king. It's kind of like, seems to mostly be doing chess plus, but it doesn't want to talk about, it doesn't want to call itself a chess game, which is interesting. Right, we just move the king away. I feel like these should be... I feel like these should be icons rather than text. They take up a lot of space, and clicking on text just feels a little bit more awkward than if they were icons. I don't know. It's a small thing. There's a lot of text on screen at any one time. There's a lot of stuff like, you know, we've got juice down here and we've got an icon for it, but when there's a thing here to spend juice to play a new meeple, it's using the text instead of the icon. And it's kind of like, why are you establishing an icon and then not using it, you know? Like here, we've got -1, it's pink, so we can understand it's loosely coded to being the energy because the energy has pink text as well. But this should say -1 lightning bolt, right? Because that's how the language of spending resources works in games. If you've established an icon for a resource, use it across the game. Okay, cool. Yeah, again, no hover over to show what curse cards do here. So we're getting this resource. We know it's something good, but we can't get that information now. It's lost in the earlier part of the tutorial. Okay. We can get a juice pouch. It can be used 3 times before it gets removed from your deck. You get more juice per turn for the rest of the fight. We can get a balloon dog. It can move very far and it poisons enemies that attack it. But it can't attack. Okay, that's interesting. And Scurry, it attacks diagonally and poisons enemies for 2 or 3 turns while attacking. Okay, I'm going to get everything. I'm going to get it all. Goop. Snake turret. We're just going to go all in on the poison stuff. We've got 3 things that all do poison. That's cool. And we'll see if that does anything in terms of like synergies between the characters. Like, can the poison stack? What happens if you have 3 poison pawns on the board? Is it like beneficial to do that, or is it better to have different elements and not double down on the same element? That's the kind of thing I'm interested in now that I see that those elements are in the game. Reroll. Oh, we can't. Okay, they can only be level 2. I think also calling them level 1 and 2 and then 2 being the cap is slightly confusing because using numbers assumes that there's more than 2, right? Because you're using Roman numerals, that implies a set that is bigger than 2. You know, 3 would be fine use of numbers, but really you're just doing base unit and then base unit plus. So having an upgrade, I think having an upgrade symbol that is a plus or a star or a medal helps to make it clear that there's only one stage of upgrade, whereas putting a Roman numeral implies that there should be more than one. Okay. Let's put all our new guys down. Put the balloon dog there. The balloon dog wants to get attacked because it will poison enemies that get attacked by it. The cap goes higher for every area for level up. Okay, that's cool. That's good to know. Very strange to have half hearts as well. I think hearts, you can have half hearts in a Zelda game where they are like half of a visual unit, but it's very strange to see a heart and a 0.5 on it. It just feels wrong. And I know some of this, it's like, it's deeply subjective, some of these things I'm saying about kind of UX and symbols and icons and stuff, but often if the kind of criticism you get back from something is, that's not how games usually do it, or I don't see that usually in games, and it's not something that's worth being innovative about because it's not a thing that adds fun, it's just like an information layer thing. Like, I've never seen a game that uses these small units of health and hearts, like in a kind of Hearthstone card game or whatever, that then reduces them to being floats, like 0.5 and stuff. 0.5 of a heart works if the heart is like visually half a heart, like you get in Zelda or Cult of the Lamb. It feels very strange here. And stuff like that, stuff like not consistently using the icons for the resources across the board, you know, using the text name of the variables up here to say energy and juice instead of the icon. All of that is a case of like, all of that is kind of a case of, well, games don't usually do this, and there's a reason why the conventions that they usually have are established. They're just quicker to read, they're easier for people to understand, and it feels like there's lots of things here that have been done differently for the sake of doing things differently. And while it all looks nice, like at an art direction level, this whole game looks beautiful. It's very, very like nice to look at. VFX in the background, lovely. I can see some actual meeples there. Character designs, really charming. Text, everything looks lovely. But there's lots of things to do with how the UI is laid out, or the individual elements of the individual elements of the UI, like how icons are used and stuff, that feels like it's being weird for the sake of it. And I think some of those things are, I don't want to call them laziness, but they're choices made out of what's easier for the developer to do, right? So not going through the game and putting the icons in instead of text would be an example of that. And that's kind of like cutting a corner. But it's cutting a corner that ends up making the whole thing look really visually noisy, because you've got like, you know, 12 different sections of text on the screen, and actually like you look at all the words and the sentences on the screen and you realize that about, you know, 40-50% of them could be taken away if they were using icons instead of words, and then the whole thing becomes much cleaner and much easier to visually take in as a player and understand what's going on, because you're not overloading it with loads of text. Because the kind of psychological effect of having a piece of text on the screen is that when your eye goes up to it, you can't help but kind of start to spend a bit of time reading on it. Whereas if you read an icon, if you read a icon that's like a droplet for juice, the amount of time that your brain takes to process that is way smaller than reading the word juice, which is 5 letters, and like having to turn the letters into a word in your mind. And every time you use a word where you should use an icon, you're sort of increasing that overall visual noise of the game and increasing the processing time and increasing like the pull of different parts of the interface where there's a piece of text that shouldn't currently be there and my eye is going over there and over there. And that's all stuff I would watch out for. I think that's kind of the weakest area of this game at the moment. It's not stuff that's hard to fix, but it really depends depends on whether you've sent this in because you genuinely want feedback to act on, or whether it's like a marketing thing. And I never know when people send me games. I very, very frequently check out games after they've been on a stream, and I've offered things that were very easy to fix that had no downsides, and they haven't been fixed at the time that the game launches. And it's like, why did you send it in? Like, I gave you something you could have changed about your game that would make it way better, that would have taken you half an hour, and you didn't do it. I see that all the time. I think most of the things I'm identifying here are very small, niggly UI UX things, but hopefully they're things that you could fix very, very quickly. Okay, we're gonna inject this guy, and we might lose him. We've got a 1 in 4 chance. He's energy efficient. His energy costs have halved. We open the gacha machine. That's lovely. There's that little opening the ball sequence. You have to like repeatedly click on it to open the ball. I'll take this guy. I'll take one of the free ones. Let's move on. It is the actual core game, I think, is really good. Like, I kind of want to play more of this. I want to play more than I've got time for today, and that's a good sign. There's just like the stuff that I said earlier about the tutorial design. The problem with that, as I said, is really just that it doesn't inspire confidence that the audience for the game is like a hardcore audience, you know? Because it makes you think, okay, if you're going to sort of like patronize the audience by explaining very, very simple things that they should have learned from other games, then you're kind of communicating to your audience that, you know, you've made this game for people that don't really play these games and it's like their first one, that kind of thing. Uh-oh, I lost someone. Who's this? Jim and Mori. Tell me more about you, Jim and Mori. What do you do? Plus and diagonal movement. Also, why are we using diagonal and plus? Like, just use orthogonal. Let people learn what orthogonal means. This meeple can't attack. Ability, plus and diagonal, 1 tile range. Swap pieces with an enemy, dealing your attack strength to it in the process. Okay, that's fun. Let's do that. We've put our king in harm's way that way. Can't afford anyone else. Okay, we'll do the swappy again and take out this guy. I like the swap attack move, that's cool. Can't afford to do anything else. We can get another character though, so let's put one of these down. Worthy Whist. I've got my own Worthy Whist. The other thing that's strange here is that so I get some characters that are kind of similar to theirs. So they've got an enemy called a Whist, and I've got a Worthy Whist. I'm trying to work out what the visual distinction is. I guess it's that they have this red base. Oh, it says Whist's a friend. Does this mean this one you can't attack Whists? Oh no. I think that's what it means. Oh no, it doesn't. Okay. So, what does the Whists are friends quirk mean? Because I seem to be able to attack that. Does it mean that that's just not going to attack me? So there's another UX thing here. You're mixing up explicit rules explanation text with flavor text, right? So Wisps Are Friends could be a rule explainer, but it's too vague to actually be helpful in the moment-to-moment of the game. This is one of the reasons why if you go and get a Magic the Gathering card and you read the text, when they have a piece of flavor text or story text, they put it in italics. So they have a visual way of communicating that something is not actually gameplay information. I don't know if Wisps of Friends is gameplay information. I tried to intuit that it might have been, and it still let me attack a Wisp with the Wisp. So I don't know what that means, and I now don't trust this information. Friends don't let friends take their last heart. Well, let's finish this map and then we'll move on to the next game. I do really like this. I've had some gripes and some moans, but I think most of them are like very small tweaks to fix small content problems. I'll just buy them all. I'll just have all of them, thanks. The theming is the kind of pseudo chess theming is good as well, because it sort of justifies why like the problem with any of these games is that you're always going to be compared to something like Slay the Spire. And then from a content perspective, if you make a game that's very similar to Slay the Spire, people are going to look at your game and go, yeah, but in Slay the Spire there's 4 characters. So even if your base game is quite big, the amount of variety that you get from 4 characters is quite considerable. And that's why, Rogue Book came out after Slay the Spire, and that's where you're combining characters. And then it's not just how many characters are there, it's like, what's it like to play with the different combinations of 2? And you have that just general expectation from the genre that you're going to have all of that variety. And here you do have the variety of like loads of meeples to collect, but also because we're theming it around a sort of chess king, sort of going through this world, it sort of makes sense that the main character that we get to play as wouldn't change, because it's the king. It's the thing you defend in a chess game. So it's perfectly reasonable that our sort of main character that is our kind of replacement for our sort of primary pawn in Slay the Spire or something like that is just always the same thing and doesn't change, doesn't upgrade, you don't unlock anything else, because the king is the king, right? So it's like a pillar of the thematics of the game is that, and that helps to kind of strengthen it. And I do think this stuff matters, because your theming is going to change people's expectations of how much stuff is in your game or the variety of stuff that's in your game. I've recently been replaying let me see if I can recently been playing Bad North. I don't know if you've played Bad North. It's like a top-down. You're defending islands from Vikings that are coming in to burn your houses down. And you could have made mechanically exactly the same game with a high fantasy theme. But if it had been high fantasy, people would have expected there to be loads of varieties of enemies and make them different goblins and skeletons and stuff, because that's what you usually get in like a fantasy defense game like Kingdom Rush Tower Defense or something like that. But because of the historical setting, because they deliberately did sort of like Saxons versus Vikings, it actually makes it make more sense that there are fewer types of thing, because there's just like 5 different types of sort of stylized human enemies coming at you. And that takes a kind of constraint of having fewer enemies that could feel cheap and could make the game feel like kind of lazy and cheap, and turns it into a strength because it's now like thematically consistent with it being a game about defending islands from Vikings. And I feel like there's a similar thing going on in Manic Meeples, where because we've got a chess king, it just kind of sets your expectation as a player for like how much stuff is going to be in the game, and the fact that the emphasis is going to be on your deck of meeples being different each time rather than your main character being different each time. And that's where the difference comes from. What does this one do? The knight. Charge in a direction. If it hits an enemy, deal your attack. Oh, okay, cool. Oh, no, I don't want to end a turn. I want to charge that way. And we've got 1 energy left. What's their ability? Place a snake turret which automatically poisons and attacks enemies for your strength every turn. Up there. I love a turret. My favourite. Yeah. the skunk and the snake are having a little row in the corner. The knight is charging up. I think that's what this symbol is. Oh, I don't think it went off. I don't know. We just want to keep blocking the king and not letting them get to the king. Love a party horn sound effect. Big fan. Hyperize this meeple during battles. So we don't know what hyperize means. We've got no pop-up on that keyword either. It's kind of interesting. It's like the keyword pop-ups, right? Where, you know, a thing is highlighted and you hover over it and the game tells you what that means. That's like a really, really important helper mechanic in nearly all kind of card-based video games, you know? It was sort of established a long time ago. Hearthstone has it. Most kind of top-down strategy games like 4X games and stuff like that have it. It's such an important thing about making your game accessible and allowing players to sort of just learn it as they play, right? Rather than needing to cram all of the information into a tutorial. Because even if you make a big, really robust tutorial, players are still going to forget what some of these keywords mean. They're going to forget how poison works. They're going to forget what hyperize means. They're going to forget what curse tokens are or whatever. So you need all of that in place. And I think one of the things that I find strange about this project is that you've gone to so much length to do these very characterful tutorials where everything is being explained, and you obviously care about people understanding the game, right? And that's commendable. It's good. It's good that you've done that. It's good that you care about people learning and understanding the game. But it feels almost like you haven't understood the importance of those other information helper mechanics, like the tooltips and stuff. And that's strange because the tutorial you've put in, like, I think it's a flawed tutorial. I don't think it teaches the game well, but it does show care in that direction. You care that people should be able to play the game and should learn to play the game, but yet it doesn't feel like you've looked at similar games and understood how the kind of the access to information about games about the mechanics in those games works and why it works that way. So we've just got something that's very overloaded with text, doesn't have tooltips where it should do, and doesn't make use of icons and symbols where it should do. And that really clashes with how sort of friendly and accessible everything else seems to be in terms of the style of the art and the way that everything is kind of written and characterized. I could quite happily sit here and just play this demo all the way through. In terms of the actual gameplay, I enjoy the core gameplay. I think the problems that you have are a kind of a different level of the project from the actual game design. They are more to do with the UX. But yeah, we'll move on from that now. We're going to check out Forge the Fates next. This is the match 3 one. So we're doing kind of like a puzzle quest thing where you're fighting using a match 3, and we're doing some deck building with the match 3. So it's kind of like Luck Be a Landlord. See how we get on with this one. So yeah, it seems like the stream is still going on Twitch, but not on YouTube. So just give a shout in the chat if you can still see from Twitch. YouTube has cut us off, but I will just upload the VOD afterwards. Doesn't seem to be my end because it's working on one platform and not on the other, and everything is working from my phone as well. So let's check out Forge the Fates. Okay, very nice character art, I think, generally. Welcome to the Fates. Ah, a Runecaster. Now this is my kind of company. Click anywhere to advance the dialogue. Okay. I think this is the kind of pixel art that if I was on a slightly bigger screen, it might start to feel a bit stretched. Or a bit too zoomed in. I'm here to show you the basics of combat. These ruffians are our first encounter. This will take you about 5 minutes. Let's go. Okay, these guys are going to attack. We've got 4, 4, 5. We got... I can't count today. We've got 13 incoming damage. These are the runes. They're going to get shuffled. This tells us what they do. That's 5 shields. That's 3 shields for each enemy alive. 5 shields. So you're putting together a color, like purple for attack. I don't know what orange is. Light and shadow runes. Okay. Okay, so these are attacking, these are defending. Okay, it's not actually match 3, it's you're dragging, this is what you've got currently and this is what's coming in. So you play the runes and then the next one slide in from the side, I think. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, let's see how this works. We need a little bit more. We have to clear the front row before we can do the next one. Doing some suboptimal stuff just to learn what the additional runes do, I think. Playing 3 runes each turn. We only play the ones that are on the right, and basically they're blue when you can play them, and the one that you play determines which thing moves, and then that means you can kind of like deliberately push a row forward. The sound design feels very nice. It's really crunchy. Just turned it down a bit. It looked like it was peaking. Okay, go on. Okay, and we can also make a match by, if we play this is going to slide in and these are going to trigger together because they've matched 3. That's really neat. That feels pretty good. So we can reproduce that down here as well. So if I do these, oh, we can use a fate point. Left click on any rune on the grid, then left click an adjacent rune to swap pieces. Okay. So these fate points allow us to swap stuff that's further back on the grid that we shouldn't be able to move yet normally. Cool. I'm all shielded up. Finish her next turn. Feels good. Like there's a set of core mechanics here that are very interesting and like fun to play around with, and seem like there would be a lot of depth to mastering them. The kind of feedback, the sort of feels very kind of Golden Axe sound, crunchy sound design, and all of that is very, very nice. Yeah, I'm kind of impressed with everything that I see here so far. Target all enemies and deal 3 damage to each, plus damage based on their current value. Let's go with Flare, that seems simple. You always got to have a little fireball thing you can throw at people. Okay, here's our little map. Heal your wounds or gain a talisman. Okay, we've only lost 7 health, so let's go the power route. Okay, so we get the first thing free, and the next one costs orbs. The top rune of your draw pile is revealed, and your draw pile indicates the order in which runes will be dealt. Sure, whatever. Oh, I thought I might get to pick more than one. Okay. I wouldn't have picked that otherwise. I would have gone for the orb version, probably. Okay, cool. So we're sort of doing a Magic the Gathering thing where we collect more than we can actually use, and then we sort of compose them into a smaller set that we use for that combat. So we have to pick at least 20 runes, but we don't have to like necessarily constantly throw stuff away in order to achieve that. We can like have we can have some that we don't take into every match. Bonuses for using a larger deck. Heal 2 per turn if you've got more than 30 runes in your deck. So the reason for that is that generally speaking, in any kind of deck construction game, having a smaller deck is beneficial because it limits the amount of the effect, it limits the impact of the randomness. Because if you've got a deck of 30 cards instead of a deck of 40 cards, the combinations of, the strategic combinations of cards that you've built the deck around are more likely to show up through the random draw. So they've sort of offset that here by giving you bonuses for like to try and tempt you into building a larger deck, which is neat. It's a good mechanic. It shows thought. It shows that they understand the genre that they're working in. This is interesting. So this is going to heal me while it's on the grid. So the longer we leave this and don't move this bit forward, the more kind of this automatic healing effect we get. I really feel like the dev is... Oh, fleeting. This means that if it's in your hand, it will automatically... Remember, our hand is just this front bit. So that leaving that there is going to keep healing us. That's cool. It really kind of feels like the developer has thought through all the different kind of things you could do with this set of mechanics. You know, it's not just like come up with the unique way of using the grid to do combat and then put some basic stuff in it and that will do. They've kind of really thought through all of the different things that you might be able to do with that make it cool. It's going to cast a Bane, which will put a thing into our deck that we don't want. Okay, it's gonna bane us. Don't bane me, bro. One thing I think stands out for me a little bit in this game, and I've experienced this in quite a few deck builders, is when you're out of energy for the turn and you can't move anymore, it doesn't stand out very much. So I would always make this blink or something when you're at 0, because otherwise the kind of situation that, and this is coming back to UX again, the situation that often leads to in these games is if someone forgets that they've taken 3 turns and they've always got 3 energy, they'll be sitting there thinking about how to use their next energy, and they'll be kind of wasting time because they're sitting there planning a move that they can't actually do. And that's why it's really, really important when you've got a resource like energy in one of these card games to make it very, very obvious that the player can't currently do anything because they've run out. Otherwise, they'll be kind of sitting there waiting, they're wasting their time, and it can be very, very frustrating when they suddenly realize that they can't do anything. Okay, here's our Bane. For each bleed Bane on your grid, receive 2 additional damage each time you receive damage or lose HP from any source. Okay, so this is just like amping up how much incoming damage is. I don't know if that's reflected in this number or if that's going to be 13 plus the 2, but we'll find out. Just trying to push these to the front because they've got the fleeting keyword, so they'll go away if we leave them at the front. And now I'm going to take less damage. And now we can bring the cleave in, because the cleave is a good move, but we weren't playing it because we were trying to keep that lane in the kind of layout that it had to keep this auto healing going. Yeah, I guess when we're out of energy, we do get the kind of thing switch from red to green down here. I would just make that a little bit more prominent. You know, flash it when it's time to actually end the turn. That kind of stuff. I guess you can still use the fate to swap things round when you've run out of energy as well. So there's a balance there of which thing needs to be more, which thing do people need to be more reminded of. I'm gonna try it on hard difficulty. This definitely feels like something I could play a good long session of. Core mechanics are good. Art and sound are good. A few tiny UX things we've noticed so far, but very small. Whenever you would take damage from an enemy attack, take one less. Raise your max HP by 1 after each battle. Okay, we'll go with that because we can afford that. And on the first gain of each battle, gain 1 additional... Oh, okay, yeah, 1 additional energy in the first round. I'm fine with that. Let's go back. Oh. There we go. It's an attack that gives us a heal at the same time. If this is the first rune played this turn, deal 10 damage instead. While on your grid, gain 4 shields each time a played rune applies burn to any enemy. Okay, that's cool. I'm going to get that because that feels like something cool to build around. So I don't have any burn abilities, but that is basically, it sits on the grid, and while it's on the grid, your burn abilities are going to give you defense. That's a really cool little kind of synergy to be able to build around. Maximum HP up. Duplicate a random rune in the deck. Okay, let's go for it. Just turn that one off for now because I don't get any use of it. I'm going to turn these off as well, these dark runes, because I never seem to get any use of those. Oh, I don't have enough. I need to still have 20. I keep forgetting I've got that. I keep forgetting I've got that extra energy, and that time I didn't read the warning and skipped it. Getting some cascades. It's pretty cool. Do our healing attack. This guy's tough. But now he's dead. I beat him up until his orbs came out. When you play a rune that heals you, this gains 1 shield for the rest of battle. When you play a rune that discards another rune, every time you play a dark rune, gain 2 shields. Interesting. Let's try that. Uh-oh. Got some evil trees, haven't got much health left either. These guys are going to beat me, I think. Okay, so this is the one now that each time I play a dark rune, one of the purple ones, I gain 2 shields. So I want to keep this lane. I want to keep this in this lane, and then every time I attack, basically, I will get some free shield. Evil plant. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna have 1 health left. I did, to be fair, I did put it on hard, so. So I can use my fate multiple times to move that up there. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna die. Nice. I came back from the dead. I'm not sure why, but I'm fine with that. Regrowing them. How annoying. Nice. Gonna keep going in for defense stuff for now. What have we got? Make a single copy of a common room. Okay. We'll upgrade we'll copy the Crimson Guard. Okay. So, tiny bit of feedback for the dev. There's quite a lot of these shops where it's not clear that I'm only getting to pick one thing. And I think that's because I'm spending a resource. So I sort of expect to be able to spend stuff more than once because it's themed as a shop rather than just like, you know, pick one of these 3 cards or something. Because it's themed as a shop and I'm spending resources, it makes me think that I should be able to like buy multiple of the things, and then it doesn't let me, which is a little bit confusing. Cyclo Beetle. Each time the player casts a light rune, this counter is reduced by 1. Okay. So this responds to me casting light runes. That's interesting. So we're trying to just attack. I want to get those things on my grid that give me benefits from playing from playing purple cards, playing purple tiles. Wild rune. Gain 1 fate and 1 energy. Forms a match when placed beside 2 of the same rune. While on your grid, whenever you take damage from an enemy, apply 2 burn to a random enemy. I wanted to start building that burn synergy and I didn't get a chance to do it, so we're going to go for that now. If this rune is matched, gain 1 energy and 1 fate. Yeah, let's do it. Let's try it. Grave binders and a banshee. Right, I don't have 2 of the same rune, so I can't make that wild rune trigger. So we're just going to go with everything else. We start off with bonus fate because we've got a larger deck. When you make a match, I don't think it actually triggers the ability of those tiles, though. It's like you lose the tiles and you get orbs instead. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I like that trade-off. Right, we're getting quite a lot of shield for having. Every time I play a purple, I'm getting the extra shield from having 2 of these on my grid at the moment. So we're in a good position. Need to keep these 2 here. We've got 12 guard. We're going to block everything this turn. They've played a corruption on our board. For each corruption bane on your grid, receive 2 damage each time you play a dark rune. Oh, that's not good. So what we want to do is get rid of that as quickly as possible. So get that out of that lane. And we can also discard it using our shield, our special shield tile. This is shuffling my grid. That's very annoying. How dare they? But I can discard it using that ability again. That's cool. Yeah, I'm really liking this, and I'm sort of not talking much. That's partly because the stream went offline, so I'm not talking to anyone. But I do think this is really, really solid. It's the sort of thing I could really get my teeth into. I'm sort of already kind of mentally scheduling a longer play of this at some later point because I think this is really, really compelling. I think there's a few things about it that I just think will, I think about most games of this type, which is just like, make it clearer when I can't play anything anymore. The problem you have there is you've got this fate resource up in the top left that allows you to manipulate the board without using energy and like push things around that you shouldn't be able to push around. And that means that when a turn is over, it's not really over because you could use this. So there needs to maybe be a state where it's like a little bit clearer that it's the end of your turn, but then you also ping this at the same time to sort of show people that if they want to, they can like use that resource to have extra moves. I really like this. I'm going to end it here because I'm not, I kind of feel like if I'm going to play this more, I want to sit down and do another long session of it for an hour or two. The only other UX thing that I felt very kind of strongly was I've messed up to like a couple of shops now where I've gone in and I've seen the free item and I'm like, oh, I can get that and then I can spend my orbs on something else. And choosing the free item means like the shop shuts down. And that doesn't thematically make a lot of sense with the shop, and that's why I think a lot of people will have that UX issue, because we're so used to, when we see a shop with where you spend resources, we're so used to it being like you can buy more than one things. That's why it's based on resources rather than just here are 3 things, pick 1, discard 2. So that takes a little bit of getting used to, and I don't know how you make that more obvious. I'm not really sure what the fix is there, but there's definitely like a kind of little bit of an issue there that I felt, and I think other people will feel. I am going to just get the next game ready, which is Cyber Tile. And like I said, this feels very, very like, I don't know how different this is going to be from Shogun Showdown, but it feels like it's kind of based on the same core mechanics, and even the presentation is very similar. Not necessarily a bad thing, as long as it executes well on that. I'll be right back. Just get that running. So we're using WASD. I'm pretty sure this is the kind of same controls as Shogun Showdown. It really kind of, a lot of this stuff kind of comes down to, is this supposed to be like someone who's already played that game can jump into this and play it and like it? Or are you hoping that just people have never played that game and will just kind of come to your game first? Because if it's the first thing, then you need to make sure that everything kind of feels as good as that game. You can check out the controls on the right anytime. Okay. Try moving now. Press D or the right. It's going to attack. He's going to attack this tile, so if I move back, he'll stop. He's only got 1 health, though. Let's kill him with your sword. Okay. I feel like I should be able to use the 1, 2, 3 keys to trigger these. I mean, the other thing of one of the problems with submitting something like this is my instinct as a designer is as I'm playing this, if I come up against like a problem with it, my temptation is going to be to go and open the game that's similar to it and see how that does it. You can also use abilities by pressing the designated ability keys. By default, these are 1 to 6. Okay. Cool. Enemies inflict 1 extra damage on each other. Abilities have their base damage reduced to 0, but bonus damage still applies. Every attack also causes enemies to bleed for at least 3 turns. Traps are now thrown both in front and behind you. Critical strike. 33% chance to deal double attack. We'll go with that because it's very simple. I can't afford anything anyway. This is bad onboarding. Like, don't put me in the shop with 5 coins where I can't buy anything and like it's just, yeah. Have an early game shop where you can buy stuff, or don't put me in the shop. Perform a quick sword slash in the direction you're facing, targeting an adjacent line. Okay, I've already got one of those. Plant a bear trap in the direction you're facing. Okay. Cool. I'm gonna die. I'm feeling something strange here, and I think I've just worked out what it is. So some of the you're sort of clicking to use the abilities, right, and then clicking on targets and stuff. But they're sort of up here, and that means you're dragging your mouse back and forth across the whole screen, and that means that this big interrupting tooltip is coming up when you don't mean it to, right? Because normally this tooltip that comes up above the enemy. Normally that's going to come up because the player has deliberately gone and hovered over them, right? But because this has been designed this way, it's like you go up here and you hover over something, you click on it to use it, you go back down here, and as you go back down here, you end up kind of forcing the tooltips open, and it feels really awkward, and it doesn't look good. And then this is the sort of thing that makes me go, oh, okay, I'm probably going to open the demo for Shogun Showdown in a minute and see how they do it, because this feels kind of clumsy and not... And I think the thing is, Shogun Showdown has these abilities at the bottom, and that means you click them, and then you've got a very short amount of travel with your mouse to go down from there up to where you're triggering it. But because you put them at the top, you're clicking on them, dragging them down past the characters, triggering the tooltip, and it just sort of ruins the flow a little bit, because the tooltip is always coming up when it shouldn't do. I'm going to play up a couple more combats, but then we'll jump into the game that this is very clearly based on and see how it does certain things differently. Right, what does she do? Explosive Demise applies poison to every character 1 tile away on death. Okay, well, I can't really do much about that. Music feels a little bit too heavy for like a thinking tactics game as well. Well, I appear to have enough money, but I can't. But my buy button isn't doing anything. Why can't I buy that? Also won't let me continue. Okay, we got. We choose a skill to upgrade. Sure. Kind of want to turn the music off. Like, it's just too banging for a game that is fundamentally about thinking. Like, very high adrenaline music is for games of reaction. Tactics and strategy games usually do not need really banging music. I know that that's not like a universal thing, but I've always found it like, particularly sort of JRPGs where the music is like trying to trick you into thinking that you're playing a fast-paced game when you're actually just sort of sitting there thinking. I find it really off-putting, especially like I'm sitting here, I'm trying to read that paragraph of rules text, and there's just like really banging synthwave playing, and it fits the, you know, fits the thematics of the game very well, but it doesn't fit what the player is actually doing, and that's the thing that you need to think about when it comes to music choices in games. Like, what is the player actually doing here? I am gonna jump into the other game because I want to see how that UX thing is handled with the position of the different elements of the UI, because it might actually be one of the biggest problems with Cybertile. And like I said, when you make something is very, very similar, but you're going to invite comparisons, and that means your game basically needs to be exactly as polished as that game, because otherwise you're totally dependent on, you know, just the luck of people not having found the original thing that you copied. And it's fine to copy stuff, but you need to assume that the audience for your thing is still the audience that played the other thing. Yeah, see, the abilities are down the bottom, right? And also, what's our kind of speed trigger for them? Do we have one? Oh, you drag them onto there. That's how that works. I can't remember how you trigger them. It's been a while since I played this. I should have replayed the tutorial. The point really is that having them up here when they're active abilities that you use down here causes a bunch of friction, when just having them directly below the play area doesn't, right? So it's kind of one of those, if you're going to copy something, understand how it works. And there's a general kind of user interface design thing that is just nearly always correct and the right way to do things. But basically, when you have a interface and there are parts of it which are active and parts of it which are passive, right? Parts of it which you're actually clicking on and using versus parts that are just there for information. The stuff that's just there for information, put it up the top, right? That's a heads-up display. It's not a user interface. It's a heads-up display. It's there for you to just have the information if you need it. Stuff that is interactive, put it at the bottom. Part of the reason for that is your world space is here, and players kind of clicking around in here, and then the bit that they kind of interact with, and they click on stuff and they bring it up into here. They click here and then they click into the world space. This is almost like positioned like a control panel. Like the metaphor is that the thing that's at the bottom of the screen is closer to the player, right? So it's almost like, here's your steering wheel, you know, here's your steering wheel down here in front of you, and here's your windshield where you look out at the thing you're reacting to. And as soon as you put loads of clickable stuff up here, right, you're kind of dragging it down, and it doesn't have that kind of innate, this is where the interactive things go feel, because that's just never where it is in a game. We're so used to this interface convention that the interactive stuff is at the bottom and the middle, and you kind of push it up into the space. Pulling it down from the top doesn't feel right. We're not used to that, it working that way in any game. And this kind of feels like you've put stuff... I will go back to Cyber Tile for like 5 minutes, but I think it's kind of very janky, and it's hard for me to give it feedback that isn't just like, you know, you copied a game, copy it properly, you know? Because Shogun Showdown is very good, even though I couldn't remember how to play it. But I played to that demo before, really liked that game. This feels like it's putting a little bit more emphasis on like reading what these things say and learning what they do. And yeah, just having the abilities in the top left just doesn't work from a UX point of view, because there's very rarely have I ever seen a game where they would be up there. And to me, that feels a bit like you've put stuff in a different place for the sake of being different, rather than because it's a better place for it. And particularly the way that it interacts with these tooltips, where you're clicking up here and then dragging down and forcing the tooltips open when you don't mean to. It's kind of it feels a bit confused. I mean, your art's cool. It's a little bit visually noisy because there's not much difference between the level of saturation of the background and the characters in the foreground. So like I can't look at this and very easily tell what part of it's supposed to be important. So I think again, this is partly why in Shogun Showdown you've got like one color in the background, and it's got this kind of volumetric fog effect where the background is just one color, because it helps to identify which parts of the game are important for gameplay, right? And if you have a multicolored background where there's no sense of the difference between the background and the foreground, the player's brain can't work out which things are important. So I think it's kind of a case of like, I don't have an ethical problem with you copying another game. Like, that's not what I'm getting at here. I know a lot of people, when they first get into a creative thing, they get very annoyed with like people copying or the perception of being copied. There's like an ethical element there. For me, it's more of a craft thing of like, if you're going to copy something, you need to copy it properly. And that means like looking at how it works and understanding why they've made the choices they made. Because if you just said to me like, I've made a game, it's Shogun Showdown, but it's cyberpunk, great. That really appeals to me. I like cyberpunk games. I like that theme. But it needs to not have these UX problems. It needs to not have these visual design problems. It needs to not have like really intense banging music when I'm trying to think and plan and read text. All of those kind of considerations should be in place. If you want an example of a cyberpunk game that's like turn-based, that has, I remember this has quite good cyberpunk music, but it's not constantly like hammering you and making it hard for you to think. Into the Grid, kind of one of my favorite cyberpunk tactics games of recent times. But yeah, I'm going to wrap it up there, because I don't really want to spend much more time with Cyber Tile, because it's kind of just, it's going to be tiring just me saying the same 2 or 3 things over and over again. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you for joining today. Like I said, the stream cut out halfway through, so I'm just uploading this VOD after the fact, so that people who want it can get to it. Developers of any of the games, if there's anything you want to flag up or draw attention to, just leave a note in the comments, and I will try and get back to you. Thank you for sending your games in.
Did you know that this channel is funded by Patreon? By signing up to my Patreon, you can receive the following benefits: socialize in the Discord with myself and other people who share a creative ethos. Take part in monthly supporter streams where I playtest your games and tell you why they're rubbish. Get a warm, fuzzy feeling in your soul by financially supporting this channel, ensuring that I don't have to go back to working in a university or creating horrendous Skinner boxes at a free-to-play games company. I've just opened a new tier on the Patreon, and this is for people that don't like this channel and want me to stop doing what I'm doing.
For £10,000 a month,
you can get me to
Stop making content.
indefinitely. The channel will stay up, but if someone pays that
£10,000 a month.
I will not make any more content the whole time their subscription is active. But if you like my content and you would like to support at a lower rate, then those lower tiers are available and they do not cost
£10,000 a month.
Thanks. Now back to the video.